It was a peaceful morning in the small town. The sun had just begun to warm the streets, and the usual hum of the fish shop filled the air. The smell of fresh seafood lingered as customers chatted, picking their fish for the day. Marcus, the shop owner, moved behind the counter, smiling at regulars and making small talk. His shop was nothing special, just a modest corner store, but to him, it was everything. The sense of comfort and routine was his joy. But one day, something caught Marcus's eye. At first he thought it was just a stray cat, nothing unusual for the area. But this one was different. Every day, for the past week, the small cat had been sitting outside the shop by the window. It didn't ask for food or attention. It simply sat there, watching. Marcus noticed the cat had a distinctive fluffy tail that was nearly as long as its body. It wasn't like any other cat he'd seen. The way it observed everything around it, the way its eyes gleamed with curiosity, an intelligence that almost felt purposeful. "Wonder what brings you here every day," Marcus muttered to himself as he wiped down the counter. The cat never responded. Of course, it never approached anyone. It just watched quietly from the same spot, as if waiting for something. The customers didn't seem to mind. Some even smiled at the little visitor, thinking it was cute. But Marcus felt a strange pull toward it, like the cat was trying to tell him something. He named it Whiskers after that long, fluffy tail that swayed in the breeze like a flag. He chuckled to himself. "I wonder if you have any idea how much attention you're getting, Whiskers." The cat never seemed bothered by the attention, but it never got too close either. It stayed a few feet away, observing with its big, intelligent eyes. Days passed and Whiskers continued his quiet routine. Every morning, like clockwork, he appeared. Marcus began to look forward to seeing the cat, and slowly, a bond started to form, quiet, unspoken, but undeniably there. The town was peaceful, and the shop was calm, but something about the cat's presence hinted that this might be the start of something more. "Maybe you're waiting for something," Marcus whispered one morning, just as the cat sat watching him, waiting patiently for whatever was next. Days passed, and Whiskers kept showing up, just like clockwork. Every morning, Marcus would open the shop, and there the little cat would be sitting by the window watching the customers. There was something about his calm, silent gaze that made Marcus feel like the cat was learning how people moved, how they talked, and how they bought things. At first, Marcus thought it was just a coincidence. But after a while it became clear Whiskers was watching the customers as they paid for their fish, the way they handed over money, the way Marcus or his workers would place the fish in a bag. Whiskers seemed to be studying it all, his eyes never leaving the action. One morning, something extraordinary happened. Marcus was cleaning the counter, as usual, when he noticed Whiskers walking toward the door, his little paws tapping softly on the floor. But this time, the cat wasn't sitting by the window. No, this time, Whiskers had something in his mouth, a leaf. Marcus froze for a second, his heart skipping a beat. The small cat walked right past the door, into the shop, his little tail swishing with purpose. Whiskers didn't hesitate. He stood by the counter and joined the line of customers, just like any other shopper. "Well, this is new," Marcus whispered to himself, his eyes wide with surprise. The cat didn't rush. He didn't jump up on the counter or beg for food. He simply waited, just like the others, his little body perfectly still, his eyes focused. Marcus watched in complete awe. Whiskers had learned everything he needed to know about the way the shop worked, and now he was ready to participate. Is he really waiting in line?" one of the customers said, pointing at Whiskers with a chuckle. Marcus nodded, a smile creeping across his face. "I think he is." As the line moved forward, Whiskers followed, patiently inching closer to the counter, his leaf still tightly held in his mouth, as if it were the most important thing in the world. When it was finally his turn, Whiskers stepped up to the counter, his eyes locked onto Marcus's, and without a sound, he placed the leaf gently in front of him. Marcus blinked, a wave of emotion flooding over him. The little cat wasn't begging for food or making any noise. He was offering something in exchange. He was trying to buy a fish. "Well, I'll be," Marcus murmured, his voice filled with awe and a little laughter. "You've got yourself a deal, little one." With that, Marcus took a small fish from the counter and handed it to Whiskers. The cat, thrilled with his reward, took the fish and scampered out of the shop, his leaf forgotten on the counter. The customers around him couldn't stop smiling. It was one of those moments that made everything feel right. Something simple, something pure, and all because of a cat with a leaf. The shop was busy that day. Customers chatted with Marcus as he wrapped fish and made small talk, but Marcus's mind kept wandering to the little cat that had been coming by every morning. Whiskers had become a familiar, quiet presence at the window, but today felt different. As usual, Whiskers appeared, walking straight into the shop with that familiar leaf clutched gently in his mouth. The moment felt surreal. The cat had done it again, stepping into the line like it belonged there. But this time, there was no hesitation. Whiskers walked with confidence, moving toward the counter, his eyes locked onto Marcus with a steady focus. Marcus watched as the cat calmly joined the line of customers. People glanced at Whiskers, clearly amused. Some even whispered to each other, chuckling at the sight. "Look at that. The cat wants to buy fish. Whiskers didn't rush. He waited patiently, as though he understood the process. Marcus couldn't help but smile, a mixture of disbelief and admiration rising in his chest. The little cat had been watching for so long. Now he was ready to take part in the ritual. "Well, you sure know how to make an entrance," Marcus muttered to himself, his heart swelling with something unspoken. The line moved slowly, and Whiskers, still holding the leaf firmly in his mouth, took a step closer to the counter. Hands shook slightly as he prepared the next order, still trying to process what was happening. Whiskers was about to offer his leaf in exchange for a fish. As Whiskers reached the counter, he dropped the leaf gently in front of Marcus, his eyes still fixed on him. No meowing, no begging, just the quiet, unspoken offer. It was as though the leaf itself was his form of currency. Marcus stood still for a moment, stunned. Was this really happening? The little cat had learned the rules of the shop. It wasn't asking for charity. It wasn't begging for scraps. It had brought something its own version of payment. "You've got a deal, buddy," Marcus said softly, his voice thick with emotion. With a smile, Marcus picked a small fish and placed it on the counter. Whiskers' eyes brightened. He grabbed the fish in his mouth and, without a second glance, scampered out of the shop, leaving the leaf behind. The customers, who had been quietly watching, couldn't help but laugh. The moment was both comical and heartwarming. A small, clever cat had just made a deal, and the shop had witnessed something extraordinary. Marcus watched Whiskers disappear down the street, his heart full. There was something so pure about that moment, something that words couldn't capture. The bond between him and the little cat had deepened. It wasn't just about the fish anymore. It was about something far more meaningful. Whiskers had found his place in the world, and Marcus's life would never be the same. The next morning, Marcus unlocked the shop and stepped inside, the familiar scent of fresh fish greeting him. As he began his usual routine, something caught his eye. Whiskers, sitting by the window, just like the day before. But today, something was different. The cat wasn't just waiting by the glass. He had something in his mouth, again a leaf. It was as if the whole scene had been rehearsed. Whiskers walked calmly into the shop, his eyes still fixed on Marcus, the leaf held firmly in his mouth. He walked past the counter, joining the line of customers. The regulars laughed, their eyes following the little cat with amusement. It was clear to everyone that this had become more than just a one-time thing. Whiskers had turned this into a ritual. "Here he comes again," one of the customers said with a grin. "Looks like he's got his payment ready." Marcus couldn't help but smile as he watched the cat. "Same old Whiskers," he said under his breath. He could hardly believe it. This tiny cat had created a routine. Every day, without fail, Whiskers would show up, wait patiently, and offer his leaf as payment. As Whiskers approached the counter, Marcus quickly grabbed a small fish and placed it on the surface, preparing for the little cat's silent transaction. Without hesitation, Whiskers placed the leaf down and grabbed the fish, just as he had the day before. The ritual had now become a part of the shop's daily flow, like clockwork. "Well, there you go," Marcus said, watching Whiskers leave with his prize. "Another day, another deal." The customers chuckled, clearly entertained by the sight. Whiskers had become a part of their daily routine too. Some even started to look forward to his visits, eager to see the next transaction unfold. Whiskers had, without even trying, created a bond with everyone in the shop. But as the days passed, Marcus began to notice a shift. Whiskers' visits were becoming more than just cute. It was almost as if the cat had made himself a permanent fixture in their lives. He wasn't just an animal who wandered by anymore. He had a place, a role, and that made Marcus wonder what would happen if that routine was ever broken. What if one day Whiskers didn't show up? Marcus shook the thought away, but the question lingered. Would the little cat's ritual continue forever? Or was there something more to Whiskers' story than met the eye? Only time would tell. As the days turned into weeks, Marcus couldn't help but notice how much he had grown attached to Whiskers. Every morning, the little cat came in with his leaf, repeating the same quiet ritual. The other customers enjoyed the show, but for Marcus, it was more than just a game. He found himself looking forward to seeing the cat every day. It felt like a small, unspoken bond had been formed between them. But as much as he enjoyed the routine, Marcus couldn't shake the growing concern that had begun to settle in his heart. Where did Whiskers go when he wasn't at the shop? Did he have a home? Was he being taken care of? These questions kept Marcus up at night. One cold evening, as the weather turned chillier, Marcus watched Whiskers dart into the shop, his fur ruffled by the wind. The little cat was still as calm as ever, but something about his appearance made Marcus's heart ache. He seemed smaller somehow, a little more fragile than usual. "I wonder if he's okay out there in the cold," Marcus muttered to himself as he watched the cat carefully place his leaf on the counter in exchange for his fish. The next morning, as the shop opened, Marcus made a decision. Behind the shop, there was a quiet spot, sheltered from the wind. Marcus took a small cat bed, some blankets, and a food bowl, and set it up in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was something, a small gesture of care for the little cat who had become so much a part of his life. The workers noticed the change immediately. "Marcus, you're really taking care of him, huh?" one of them remarked with a smile. Marcus nodded, his voice soft. He's more than just a customer now. I can't help but wonder if he needs more than just fish. From that day on, the bed was there, ready for Whiskers whenever he needed it. The workers even started setting aside a special fish for him each day, a little extra treat. Whiskers had become more than a regular customer, he had become a friend as the days grew colder. Marcus often found himself glancing out the window, wondering if Whiskers would use the bed. The thought of him curled up in a safe, warm spot brought a sense of peace. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning, a small but important step in taking care of the little cat who had somehow captured Marcus's heart. The sky darkened earlier than usual that day, casting a heavy shadow over the town. The wind howled as the first drops of rain began to fall. Marcus was used to storms, but this one felt different. It was fierce, the kind of storm that made you want to stay inside and hide from the world. The usual bustle in the shop slowed as customers hurried in and out, eager to finish their errands before the storm hit. But Marcus's mind wasn't on the weather. He kept glancing out the window, waiting for the familiar sight of Whiskers. The little cat never missed a day. He had been there every single morning, leaf in mouth, ready to make his deal. But today, nothing. Where are you, Whiskers? Marcus murmured to himself, feeling a knot form in his stomach. The storm had grown worse, and still no sign of the cat. As the rain began to pour down harder, Marcus couldn't sit still any longer. He grabbed his coat and rushed outside, calling for Whiskers as he stepped into the cold, wet streets. Whiskers, hey buddy, where are you? His voice was swallowed by the storm's roar. Marcus walked through the streets, his heart racing with each step. He checked all the usual spots, the alleyways, under the old bench near the market, the corners where Whiskers liked to sit, but there was no sign of him. Come on, Whiskers, where are you? Marcus called, his voice trembling now. The wind picked up, and the rain lashed harder against his face, but Marcus didn't care. His worry for the little cat had grown into something bigger, something deeper. Whiskers had become more than just a visitor to the shop. He was part of Marcus's life now, and the thought of losing him, especially on a night like this, filled him with dread. After hours of searching, Marcus finally gave in. He returned to the shop, his heart heavy. There was nothing more he could do. He felt helpless, watching the storm rage outside, and all he could think about was Whiskers. Was he safe? Was he hiding from the storm? Inside, Marcus stood by the window, staring into the rain, his mind racing. The storm was more than just the weather. Now it was a symbol of the fear and uncertainty that had taken root in his heart. Where was Whiskers, and would he be okay? Marcus had barely slept. The storm kept him awake, his mind racing with worry. Every minute felt like an eternity as he thought about Whiskers. Where was he? Was he okay? The feeling of helplessness gnawed at him, refusing to let go. He'd searched all night, but the cat was nowhere to be found. Just as he was about to lose hope, his phone rang. Marcus jumped, his heart leaping into his throat. He grabbed it quickly, his voice shaking. Hello. It's about the cat. Whiskers, right. The voice on the other end was urgent. We found him. He's in the park, but ... he's hurt badly. You need to come quickly. Without a word, Marcus grabbed his coat and rushed out the door. The park was only a few blocks away, but it felt like miles as he sprinted through the streets, his mind racing. His heart pounded in his chest, a mix of relief and dread settling in. When he arrived at the park, he saw a small crowd gathered around, and in the center, there was Whiskers. The sight of him lying there, motionless and injured, made Marcus's stomach twist. The little cat was barely moving, his fur matted with blood, his body clearly hurt from being hit by a car. Whiskers, ... Marcus whispered, rushing to his side. The cat's eyes flickered open, weakly, but they still held that familiar spark. He was alive, but barely. Marcus gently scooped him up, his heart aching. I'm here, buddy. You're going to be okay. But even as he said the words, a cold fear gripped his chest. How badly was he hurt? With trembling hands, Marcus rushed Whiskers to the nearest vet, his mind filled with a single thought. Please don't let him die. He had to fight for the little cat who had become so important to him. At the vet's office, Marcus paced nervously. The doctor was quick to take Whiskers in for an exam, but the waiting felt unbearable. The guilt and worry overwhelmed him. What if it was too late? What if he'd lost the one creature who had brought him so much unexpected joy? Finally, the doctor came back. He's stable for now, she said, but the injuries are severe. We'll need to do surgery, and even then, it's not guaranteed. Marcus nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Do whatever it takes. He matters to me. As the doctor took Whiskers into surgery, Marcus sat down, his head in his hands. All he could do was wait, praying that his little friend would survive this. The hours dragged on as Marcus sat in the waiting room, his fingers nervously tapping on the armrest. The sterile smell of the vet's office hung in the air, and all he could focus on was the image of Whiskers lying there, so small and fragile. The vet had reassured him that the surgery was going well, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of worry that kept creeping in. He's a fighter, the doctor had said earlier. We'll do everything we can, but still, Marcus couldn't stop thinking. What if it's too late? What if he doesn't make it? The fear that had consumed him since the storm now felt even heavier. Door to the back opened, and Marcus stood up quickly. A vet nurse came out, holding a small, sleeping Whiskers in her arms. The sight of the little cat, his body bandaged but alive, made Marcus's chest tighten with emotion. "Is he okay?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's stable," the nurse replied with a soft smile. "He's resting now. It'll take time, but he'll make it." Relief washed over Marcus, but the weight of everything that happened in the past few days lingered. As he sat beside Whiskers, his hand gently resting on the cat's tiny form, Marcus began to reflect on everything that had brought them to this point. He thought back to the day Whiskers had first appeared at the shop, just a stray cat, sitting quietly outside the window, but somehow, over time, the cat had become a part of his life. In a way, Whiskers had saved him, bringing a sense of calm, of routine, that Marcus hadn't realized he needed. And now, Marcus realized how much he had come to care for him. "I never thought I'd care this much about a cat," Marcus said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "But you've become more than that, Whiskers. You've changed everything." The sound of Whiskers' soft breathing filled the room as Marcus sat there, reflecting on the unexpected bond they had formed. In that moment, he realized that love doesn't always come in the form you expect. Sometimes, it's the quiet, loyal presence of an animal that can change your life. "I'm not letting you go, buddy," Marcus whispered, his hand gently stroking Whiskers' fur. "You're going to be okay." The emotional weight of it all hit him hard, but there was a sense of peace in knowing that Whiskers was safe, at least, for now. The journey wasn't over yet, but Marcus knew that, whatever happened, he would always fight for the little cat who had become so much more than a customer at the shop. He had become family. It had been a few days since Whiskers' surgery, and Marcus couldn't believe how much progress the little cat had made. His strength was slowly returning, and the light was coming back into his eyes. Marcus sat by his side, watching him sleep, his heart full of relief and gratitude. The day Marcus had been waiting for finally arrived. The doctor had given the green light to bring Whiskers home. Marcus was ready. He had prepared a warm spot for the cat in his own home, and he was eager to begin their life together. As Marcus stood up to get ready, the door to the vet's office opened. A family walked into, parents and two children, their faces filled with hope. They were looking around the room when the woman's eyes landed on Whiskers. "Luna," she gasped, her voice trembling. Marcus froze. Luna, that wasn't Whiskers' name, but the woman was already kneeling beside the cat, her hands reaching out to gently stroke his fur. The cat didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned into her touch. "Luna, you're back," the woman whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "We've been looking for you everywhere." A heavy silence filled the room as Marcus stood still, unsure of what to do. The family was overjoyed, but Marcus felt an unsettling mix of emotions. The cat he had grown so close to, could he really be theirs, or was Whiskers truly his? The man turned to Marcus, his voice warm yet confused. "We've been searching for Luna for months. We thought she was lost forever. She's ours. She's been with us since she was a kitten." Marcus swallowed hard, his mind racing. Was this really the same cat? Could Whiskers be Luna, the cat they had been searching for, or had Marcus come to see him as something more, something he wasn't ready to let go of? I didn't know," Marcus stammered, his voice thick with emotion. "He's been coming to my shop for weeks. I thought he was just a stray." The woman's face softened. "We were worried about her, but now, here she is. It's a miracle." A wave of sadness washed over Marcus. He didn't want to lose Whiskers, not after everything they had been through together. But was it right to keep the cat if he belonged to this family? The tension in the room grew. Marcus didn't know what to say or what to do. This wasn't the happy ending he had imagined. The bond they had formed, was it enough to keep Whiskers? Should he let go and allow him to return to the family who had been waiting for him? "I'll give you some time," Marcus said softly. Stepping back, "I just need to think." But in his heart, Marcus knew this wasn't going to be easy. The tension in the room had barely settled when the vet entered with a solemn expression. She cleared her throat, looking at Marcus and a family who had been waiting eagerly for their long-lost cat. "There's been a mix-up," she said softly, drawing everyone's attention. "The cat you've been looking for, Luna, isn't the same as the one here." The woman looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean?" "This is our cat, Luna." The vet shook her head. The real Luna was a spayed female. "This one," she said, looking at Whiskers, as a neutered male. Marcus let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. His heart was pounding as the pieces slowly clicked together. Whiskers wasn't Luna, the cat he had been caring for all this time. The one who had found his way into his life had never been the missing cat from that family. He wasn't theirs after all. A wave of relief washed over Marcus, but with it came a bittersweet realization. Whiskers had chosen him. This small, resilient cat, who had made his way into Marcus's heart, belonged to him, not a family from the past. The woman, still clearly upset, nodded slowly, understanding now. "I see. I'm sorry for the confusion. But it's clear he's meant to be with you." The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. "He's meant to be with you." As if everything that had happened, the storm, the injury, the uncertainty, had led to this one truth. Whiskers belonged with him, and Marcus was ready to accept it. I think he has found his place, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm not letting him go. He's more than a pet now. He's my family. The woman smiled gently, understanding in her eyes. Take care of him. He's lucky to have you. With that, Marcus lifted Whiskers into his arms, feeling the weight of the little cat's trust. The bond between them had been forged in ways neither of them could have expected. Whiskers had found his way to Marcus's shop, and Marcus had found something in the cat, something deep and unconditional. As Marcus walked out of the clinic, the world felt different. It was as if everything had shifted, and for the first time in a long while, he felt truly whole. Whiskers, the clever, brave cat, had found his home, and so had Marcus. That night, as they sat together in Marcus's living room, Whiskers curled up on his lap. The warmth between them felt like a promise. The journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. Marcus whispered softly, "Welcome home, Whiskers. This is where you belong."